It seems like the sport will witness huge changes in 2023. And although many thought that the FIA was going to disappoint all of us yet again with how things are being run, this time we might be in for a huge surprise. In 2022, one of the biggest issues was the porpoising being helped by the governing body, but the essential and more beneficial help will arrive in 2023. And apart from that, the FIA isn't done with the aerodynamic help that it's about to provide to the F1 teams. And, if we may add, that is just the tip of the iceberg. As of now, the 2023 season is going to see the implementation of increased ride height and a diffuser throat. This has a massive influence on how the aerodynamic oscillations will act on the car, and now the racing field has been brought even closer. Red Bull is one team that will lose the most advantage under these rules, which is why they were so against them in the first place. One thing is for sure, and that's the fact that we're going to see a very interesting season in 2023, especially after the dominant leader, Red Bull, has been severely hurt by the new regulations. But why aren't we expecting dominance out of the Austrian team yet again? First, Red Bull has been the only team that hasn't struggled with porpoising since day one, and raising the ride height was an obvious solution and fix for the porpoising. But with this, the car would lose a massive amount of downforce and gain a massive amount of drag, so that wasn't really applicable to any of the F1 teams. And that's not what Red Bull did either, with their secret being the complexity of their car's floor. Nevertheless, now that the cars have increased floors and diffuser throats, the field is going to be leveled for everyone, and we are going to see a very interesting season. But that is not all. Quite the contrary, this is just the beginning of the 2023 regulation, and it seems like the FIA is already planning on introducing a system that is going to do wonders for the F1 cars. Reportedly, talks about a reverse DRS system are on the way, and this has been suggested by Ross Brawn. So, what exactly is this reverse DRS system, and how will it work on an F1 car? In 2022, we've seen that F1 cars have a massive advantage once the drag reduction system, or DRS, opens up on the rear wing. However, Braun believes that something can be done the other way around. More precisely, an active aerodynamic system that will make the car that's ahead, or the one that's being chased, lose a certain amount of downforce. That way, the car behind won't have such a huge advantage, but will still have some sort of leverage in the battle, and the skills of the driver are what's going to be crucial for the pass to be completed. Braun shared some insights with us regarding this matter, adding, "One of the big things about the future F1 car is whether we have active aerodynamics. I think that's an efficient step, which is very appealing. It's still going to be sorted to see how that can be done, and if it can be done safely and predictably. But active aerodynamics, we kind of have them at the moment with DRS, as DRS is active aerodynamics. If you have active aerodynamics, then of course you could affect the car in front. You could have a proximity once you get within a certain degree. The car in front loses a bit of downforce and you gain a little bit of downforce. There's tricks you can play with that. It becomes an opportunity. It's not certain whether this suggestion would be accepted for the 2023 season. However, it's on the table and has been discussed with some big names, such as the former head of aerodynamics in Formula 1, Jason Somerville, and huge progress has been made in this field. But apart from that, the FIA plans to intervene in other sections as well, such as the rear mirrors. F1 cars are still relying on the old concept of conventional mirrors, and that is something that bothered the drivers a lot. Not just that their vision can be impaired by the high speeds, but also because their massive influence on the downforce and the aerodynamical aspects of the car. That is why the discussions about rear-facing cameras have been going on for quite some time, dating back to 2018. Back then, Carlos Sainz Jr. spoke about these talks with the FIA, but nothing was brought up to the sport. Now, sparks have been flying yet again, and it seems like we're going to see some new implementations regarding how the drivers are going to view the drivers chasing them from behind. After all, This is something that has already been implemented in other categories, such as the WEC and the Le Mans 24. One would think that all the high-tech that revolves around the F1 and the multi-millionaire masterpieces that have exited production, rear-facing cameras wouldn't be such a big issue. But according to the head of the FIA's single-seater, the governing body has some issues regarding the implementation of these rules in the sport. We have given it consideration. It's got 3 issues that need to be resolved. One is that there's not much space for a TV in the cockpit. Second, it's used sometimes in closed cockpit cars, which have rather dark conditions inside. You can see if you put your phone in sunlight. You don't want the driver squinting to see if they can see something. So, there's that. Then, the third thing is that there's a time of adaptation of your focus from one distance to another distance, which we're also a bit concerned about, and we need to evaluate carefully. At the speeds you're going, you must not lose that 0.5 of a second to adapt, so that's another issue. Obviously, this project is much easier to construct than to implement in everyday racing. However, the fact that it's already existing and has a massive impact and influence in other categories helps the F1 governing body bring it to their drivers as well. Whether this will see the light of day in 2023 or sometime later, that's up to us to wait and see. Another thing that's certain for 2023 is that the tire blankets will reduce the temperature, something that F1 drivers and teams are not happy about. For the 2023 season, the tire blankets are going to have their temperature reduced from 70 in an attempt by the FIA and Pirelli to save electricity and reduce power consumption. However, with the increased tires from 2022 and on, it's going to be much harder to warm up the tires and have a proper lap on the tire without spinning or hitting other objectives, something that the 2-time world champion Max Verstappen has spoken about. This is just the first step towards a full ban on the tire blankets that is supposed to take place from 2024 onward, something that the FIA has taken a firm stance on. This, according to every driver, not just Verstappen, will result in a lot of crashes, especially on tracks that require high temperatures from lap 1, such as those with a lot of rain and are naturally cold. F1 is also going to see a new tire compound starting with the 2023 season, and that's CO. It's a hard compound tire that is meant for dry weather, and we are yet to see how this tire will perform on the F1 cars. And it's worth mentioning that the FIA has introduced a new system regarding the engine penalties, given the fact that last year in Monza, total chaos was present regarding the starting grid on Sunday, and drivers that took engine penalties had no idea where they were going to start the race. Some of the changes that are supposed to be implemented and have been suggested by the sporting and power unit committees are: 1. Replace grid position penalties with in-race penalties for the first power unit element changed in an event. This penalty would be served at the first pit stop. 2. Any power unit element replaced would be withdrawn from the pool of available power units. 3. Special provision would be made for the replacement of power unit elements damaged in an accident. 4. As the changes of power unit elements will be more severe, it is suggested to increase the annual limit of power unit elements by 1. For example, teams will be able to use 4 internal combustion engines, ICE, rather than 3. With that being said, it's obvious that a very interesting season lies ahead of us. What do you think will happen in 2023? Do you think that Red Bull will fall off the throne thanks to all the penalties applied to their name, and Ferrari improving on the reliability of their engine? Let us know in the comments below.